So this is a video that I've wanted to do, obviously, but I've been very scared to do it at the same time. And like I've made videos in the past, obviously, like talking about mental health and talking about, um, giving giving those positive affirmations, like believe in yourself, you gotta do what you, I don't know what I've said I've said a lot of dumb things in my videos. And I don't ever want um I don't want to make this seem like it's like, oh, boo-hoo. It's like no, this is gonna be like just the story, because I am a big proponent of mental health, and I've also struggled a lot with mental health in my life. And this is not like a pity party. This is not a, you know, uh, seeking sympathy or attention thing. It's just I want to share my experience in hopes of that I can help other people that might be going through the same thing. So starting off, I have always struggled with anxiety. I got diagnosed when I was 15 with generalized anxiety. Um, I didn't really know what it was at the time. I didn't know um like what anxiety was for the longest time. I always just was like, "Oh, I'm just nervous. I'm just I didn't know what mental health was. I didn't know what, I grew up in an environment where feelings weren't really talked about, and like mental health wasn't really a talked about subject. And so I always just like was like I felt, because I didn't know what anxiety was, and because I didn't know that this was a common thing that people struggled with, I felt incredibly alienated, incredibly alone, and incredibly isolated, because I was so unaware of the fact that this is a thing that people struggle with, and this is a thing that like people have. And like I didn't know that, so I felt like I was like this weird like alien that was just like, oh no, I why am I different than everyone else? And that stuck with me for a while. And that's the thing about mental health and mental illness, is that like you feel different than everybody. You feel like there's something wrong with you. But there's not. Like, yes, you have a like you feel separate, but we're all human at the end of the day. Um but continuing on, these past 4 years have been, ever since 2020, ever since COVID, I don't know if I can say that. Ever since we went into lockdown, ever since 2020, it's been a weird roller coaster. And the year I want to talk about the most is 2021. Was probably the lowest point in my life in terms of my mental health, and the closest I have probably ever been to contemplating suicide. It's I've never I've never thought about killing myself. I haven't. It's But 2021 was probably, that was the year. It was a really rough year. So getting into it, yeah, and even at the start of the year, I fell into a deep depression. Um, you know, it, I'm not diagnosed with depression. I could be. I could have like clinical depression. I'm not sure, but I fell into a deep depression of January in 2021. And I was just crying every single night. And I didn't know why. I felt incredibly, a lot of complicated feelings and a lot of complex emotions that I've never told anyone about this. Um, but that January of that month, what really just stuck with me, and it that was just a start. um 2021 was also the year that I graduated high school. um and so it was a big shift into, for 13 years you're in this routine of like going to school and, getting up, going to school, doing homework, like, and then all of a sudden that's not a thing anymore. And I wasn't sure. I didn't plan on going to college, not because I hated school. I did hate school, but not because I hated the schoolwork, just because I hated going to school, and I hated having to like interact with people every single day. But so that was definitely a big shift in in having to adjust to that. Fast forward August of 2021, I was still in this rut of just feeling not as bad as the beginning of the year, but still pretty um still pretty, just feeling very lonely and very isolated. I I talked about I have anxiety before. I also discovered I have health anxiety. If you don't know what health anxiety is, or hypochondria, it's hard to explain to someone if you don't have it, but for those who don't know, health anxiety, or hypochondria, as some might know it as, it's basically believing that there is something that you are, in simple terms, it's believing that you have a terminal illness, or there's something wrong with you, and you're going to die, and you're going to um I can only speak from my experience. But in August of 2021, one day I was just like, I was just, um, I think I came back, like I was going on a run or something, and I came back, I went inside, and I looked down on my foot, and wouldn't you know it, I see this blackish, blackish spot on the top of my, just under my big toe. This black little circle thing, just sitting there. And I immediately freaked out, because I was like, that could be melanoma. Now I know it sounds crazy. If you don't deal with it, you're overreacting. If you're someone with health anxiety, that is a very normal reaction. It's not normal, but it's the closest. It's normal to people, and so I started having like a panic attack, because I was like, oh my God, it was hot, it's been hot outside, it's summertime, what if I was in the sun for too long, and I got this, now I'm dying, and I'm going to I have melanoma, and there's no way to cure it. What if it's too late already? To have those thoughts in your head, anybody, anytime to have those thoughts in your head, that's really not, that's not okay. And I thought it was so normal. I thought it was such a normal reaction, and I went on Google. I never Google your symptoms. Never Google your symptoms if you're someone with health anxiety, because it will only make it worse. It will only make your anxiety worse. I Googled my symptoms, and wouldn't you know it, first thing that came up, skin cancer. Skin cancer, and it just rather confirmed my beliefs that I was like, oh, it's a done deal. It's confirmed now. I have melanoma and I'm probably going to die. Um, but I went to someone. I just talked to a family member and I was like, "Hey, do you know what this is?" And they were like, "Oh, that's a blood blister." And I was like, "A what?" I've never had one. I'm like, "Yeah, that's just a blood blister." And I was like, so I went on Google and I was like, "Blood blister." Oh yeah. Oh. 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 Yeah. That's okay. Whew. Okay. All right. My anxiety eases for now. There we go. I'm not going to die anymore. I'm still a little like on edge. But that aside, I'm cancer free now. I'm cancer free. I never had cancer. Um, so continuing on the health anxiety side of things, let's fast forward to end of October of 2021. I start having these. I start like having these this tingling sensation in my extremities, like my fingers, my hands, my feet. I had this really very warm tingling sensation in those areas, and I've never had those before. And so I scheduled a doctor's appointment, and I went to the doctors, and they were like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I was like, "Hey, yeah, I've been having this weird like tingling sensation. Like, do you know what that's about?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, no, that's anxiety." And I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean it's anxiety? It can't just be anxiety. It has to be something else." They were like, "No, no, that's anxiety. That's anxiety." And I was like, "Okay, that's anxiety. Okay, sure." And also, what happened is I felt, don't get scared. I had a lump. I had a lump on my elbow. And my doctor was like, "Oh yeah, no, you're come back for that. We're gonna schedule another appointment. Why don't you come back for that?" I was like, "Okay, uh, okay, come back in a month." And I was like, "Okay, okay, I'll come back in a month." So, in between that month, from end of October to I think it was the beginning of December, that was when I contemplated killing myself. You know, I remember I remember I there was this time I in between that month I was like, and I didn't tell anybody about this, but I became like I spiraled back into a depression because in my mind I'm like, and I also at this time started having like severe headaches, and I was like, it's brain cancer. It's I have these lumps on my body. My head's hurting. I'm having this tingling sensation in all over my body. I've never had this before. I'm I'm dying. Like I am going to die. And so this one night I was taking a bath, and I was like, I think this was 4 weeks into it was a week before the doctor's appointment, and I was at wit's end. I was, again, if you don't have health anxiety, this sounds crazy. This sounds this sounds like an overreaction. I totally get that. But as someone, if you have health anxiety, it's terrifying. And this is like week before the doctor's appointment. I was very depressed. I was and also during this year I started to this is the 2021 is the year I started to journal a lot. It was the year I started journaling and so journaling, I think, has always been, and ever since then, journaling has been like a very there's been like, starting in April of 2021, I bought a journal and I journaled every single day. And if I missed a day I didn't journal, I would come back the next day and I would just write down the most horrendous shit you could ever think of. Just saying like, you lazy piece of shit, why didn't you journal yesterday? Why are you so pathetic? Why am I so pathetic? Just the craziest, most like unhealthy, toxic thoughts you can have because I missed a day of journaling. So this was the year I started journaling. And so I, while I was like in between of like doctor's appointments, I was journaling a lot. And I was like, there came a point where, I was I was laying in the bathtub and I was like, I was like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die sometime soon. So I might as well just end it now. Because I don't want to have to go through that pain. Because I'm already going to die, so what's the point? And so I start writing letters. So I start writing these, just writing down, just saying goodbye and saying to the people I love and saying I love you and I'm sorry. And I put the journal down and then I just sat in the bathtub. I was weeping and I was hopeless. I felt completely drained of everything. I didn't know what to do because I was like, and again, I didn't tell anybody about this. So I was like, I'm dying and I've waited too long. Like, what if it's already spread? Like, what if it's all these thoughts going through my head of just like, the end is near and I don't know if I'm going to make it to this doctor's appointment. And so eventually I did. Eventually I did make it to the doctor's appointment and I was very nervous. I was very nervous because I was like, this is going to confirm my beliefs of like, you have brain cancer and it's too late. That's what's going through my head of like, he's like, my doctor's going to confirm my biggest fear. I go into the doctor's office and I sit down and I'm shaking because I'm just ready. I'm just ready to hear the worst news. And my doctor's like, he reassures that like, those tingling sensations, that is just anxiety. Those lumps, that is called a lipoma. I don't know what it's called. Not cancerous. And I was like, what about the headaches? And he was like, and the headaches had actually gone away. I should have mentioned that. The headaches had gone away by now. I'm pretty sure those were probably stress related. But he was like, yeah, everything's fine. You're, like, everything's healthy, everything's fine. And I was like, I can't remember if when I came home from that, I can't remember exactly what I did, but I think I just remember feeling like so relieved. I just remember feeling like it felt like it almost felt like I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here right now, but I am. It was such a weird feeling of like, I should be dead. I should be dead. At least that's what I thought in my head of like, I'm still breathing. I'm still here. I'm still living. It's like I feel like I'm on borrowed time. That's what anxiety does. It fucks up your brain a lot. And I'm like, what do I do? This is, I don't, I was so, I wasn't prepared. That's the thing. I wasn't prepared. I probably convinced myself of like I was, but there was no way I was prepared for anything. But I just was, it was more of just like a acceptance, I think, of, you know, this is, it was short, but there's nothing I could have done to prevent it. But I'm here. And, you know, it felt like things just like were normal again. And I didn't know how to feel. Because I was like, to me at least, I've been through fucking hell. And now all of a sudden it's all over. What am I supposed to do with that? And I've kept this all within myself. I haven't told anybody about this. What do I do? So ultimately, I everything that year went back to normal. But you know, leading on to the next year, 2022 was, in terms of mental health, I've always been like a very mellow person. Like I've always been a genuinely like a pretty like I wouldn't say pessimistic or negative. I would just say I do struggle with depression. So maybe that's it. 2023 was rough. I said that at the end of my year video, and that was because you know, just feeling lost. Feeling lost in life, feeling hopeless in life. We've all been there. And yeah, it was just such a blur. 2023 was such a blur. This year, 2024, we're halfway through, which is crazy. My mental health has been, it's been one day at a time, I think. One day at a time, I think, is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. I'm trying to learn about, okay, I recognize this pattern. What can I do differently to get a different outcome? so that the same thing doesn't happen again. But it's been really, again, I don't want this to be like I don't want this to be such a Debbie Downer video, but yeah, and that's why, like, I made a short little video. I don't know if you guys watched it. I made a short little video promoting this company, and like, I don't, this back of the sweatshirt says it's okay to talk about your mental health. And I have another one that says it's okay to not be okay. And I know how cheesy it is. I know it's such a cheesy, positive affirmation of like, but it works for me. And I truly believe in those statements. I don't just wear it. I wear it because it's like, that's something I need to hear. That's something I needed to hear as a kid. Like, me as a kid growing up in an environment where I didn't have a space where I could talk about my mental health. I didn't have a space where I could talk about my feeling. And like, I always felt like I had to be happy. I always felt like I had to put on a smile. But the truth is that like, we're all human, and we're all incredibly, like, we all deserve to like talk about our feelings. We don't always have to like put on this like fake face and like pretend. It's okay to be your authentic selves. And that's the message I try to spread. But yeah, because that's something yeah. But yeah, just, I remember feeling so alone in that video, when I was in that bathtub. I just remember how alone I felt, and that's the scariest thought, of like feeling like you're alone when the end is near, or at least when you think the end is near. That's